G'day YouTube, welcome to the channel. Dino here with another video. This week's casting is this wonderful S&S Cadillac made by Lesney between 1965 and 1970, with the 70 model having the first of the superfast wheels. This model represents an ambulance that was around in the United States and Canada from around 63 and 64, and they were converted by a company called S&S. As you can see, she's in bad need of a good resto, so I see what I can do. There's not much paint left on it. The windscreen's pretty badly damaged in places. But it's all there, so we'll get cracking and see what we can do with it. Well, let's just check out the damage. I mean, the axles are bent. Someone stepped on it and cracked the windscreen. Not much we can do about that. It's not much paint. But this isn't exactly a resto. We're going to do something. I couldn't help myself when I was looking for the decals on eBay. Yep, we're going to do a little Ghostbusters tribute. So first of all, we have to take it apart. So out comes the 1.5mm drill, and we'll just do a little pilot hole. Just makes it a little bit easier when you get the bigger drill out to take the top of these mushrooms off. And plus it gives you something to start off when you're drilling the actual hole for the tap. Only the one post to worry about. The rear is held in with just a little tab that goes into the casting itself. The interior is in pretty good nick. Of course, we've got a post holding in that poor old windscreen. But again, a little clean up, that'll be fine. Yeah, this windscreen worries me a bit. It's obviously been trodden on and squashed at some stage. So we'll just take the bulk of this mushroom head out with a drill. We don't want to go too far and leave an indent in the roof, or even worse, put a hole in it. And now I'm just using a little grinding tool just to take the edges off this mushroom end, and we can get the windscreen out without doing any more damage, to be honest. So this did actually take me quite a bit of time. Okay, when I was satisfied I'd taken enough of that mushroom head off, I just used a little bit of friendly persuasion by pushing down on the red light on the top, and out it popped. Now, as you can see above the backseat windows, it's really just crumbling and falling apart. I did try and repair those, but yeah, it was pretty ugly, so in the end I just cut them off. And there's the flashing lights. They'll polish up alright. And while I had the grinding tool out, I quickly cleaned up around these posts and the front post as well, to make things easier to go back together. So here we are, got the 1.5mm drill bit out. I have actually marked it so I don't go right through everything and drill a hole through the bonnet, which would be disastrous. I'm just going to carefully drill a hole, and quick reminder myself to go get some new drill bits. So after a couple of drops of light oil into the holes, we've got a 2mm tap, so we can fit an M2 screw in it. So here I'm using another 2mm tap, which I've cut the end off, the pointy end, so it's flat. And with the start off made with the other tap, I can just go a little bit deeper without the risk of damaging the bonnet. And we'll just put a M2 screw in it to keep the hole covered up, and gives me something to hold onto it when I go to paint it and what have you and whatnot. We need to clean up the base, the axles and the wheels, so the wheels have to come off. On one end of the axle you've got a great big mushroomed head holding the wheels on. The other end it's just burred. So we'll just carefully take this burr off with this wheel on my rotary tool. Actually, the funny thing is with this car, the big mushroom end was on opposite sides of the car. I can't say I've ever seen that before. So we just take our time, try not to nick the wheel, hold it square so we don't taper the axle too much, because we need to put that burr back on when we put it back together. Let the fun begin. This is my preferred method of removing the paint. It's using boiling water and caustic soda. Not everyone's cup of tea, and I can see why. Really, it's probably quite dangerous. But I do pre-warm the vase, so when the boiling water hits it, it doesn't explode. And this is the best part. That was one of the better reactions. What was I saying? Oh yeah, this method is probably a little bit dangerous. Boiling water, caustic soda, this crap got on your skin, probably take your skin clean off. And make sure you do pre-warm the vase, and that's quite a tall vase, so it doesn't boil over. Pre-warm the vase so when the hot water hits it, it doesn't explode. I'm wearing thick gloves, I've got glasses on. But still, if things went wrong, I think they'd go very wrong very quickly. Okay, with nearly all the paint gone, out comes the wire wheel and the Dremel. And we'll go over the whole thing, get it nice and shiny. Now, if you think about getting into this hobby, it's a really great little hobby. It's a lot of fun. And you don't need, you only need some really basic tools. I'm sort of lucky because I used to race 10-scale remote control cars, and of course I used to build all my own cars and paint them, so I had all this stuff lying around. But it's not a huge expense to get started, and of course if you're worried about ruining cars, just go down to your local supermarket. They're a couple of bucks, and practice on a few before you tackle something you're worried about wrecking. Okay, here I've noticed things are just a little bit bent. This A-pillar is also has been broken off, and the one behind it as well. So I've given a bit of a tweak, tried to straighten out as best I can, just so it looks right. It's no wonder why the windscreen was such a mess. If you can hear my neighbour using their whippersnipper, I do apologise. It's been raining again here quite consistently after such a dry spell, and the grass is growing. So now I've just trying to repair that broken pillar with a little bit of super glue and the old bicarb soda trick just for reinforcement. And as I was saying before, if you're looking to get into this hobby, there is a ton of YouTube videos of people that do exactly this. And unlike me, these guys actually know what they're doing. And this is just a trick I learnt off YouTube. Right, out come the files. And we'll remove all the excess. It just reshaped slightly. The super glue and bicarb soda trick sort of sets like steel. It sets really hard, which is good. So it's nice and strong, and we can scrape off all the excess quite easily, just like it was if it was metal. while I'm at it, might as well go over the whole model and remove any excess flashing. Also, there's some casting lines there on the bonnet. I'll just quickly take them off, then smooth them back out. Make it look all pretty. And I'm using some wet and dry. I think it's probably 1200 wet and dry, just to remove all the file marks. And to get into the awkward nooks and crannies, this is just some wet and dry which I've glued to some paddle pop sticks. Great innovation. And just for a bit of fun, I get the auto sole out and I'll give the whole body a bit of a polish, and that really does show up any major flaws that the casting might have. Now need to remove any of that wax that may still be on it. I have given it a rinse in some warm soapy water. Of course it's got all my oily fingerprints all over it and the paint won't stick to that. So I'm just using this stuff, whatever it was, and I'll give the model a really good wash, and then just for fun and to make sure I hit it with some alcohol as well. Welcome to my spray booth. Actually it's just a black tub sitting on a sheet, sitting on the washing machine next to an open door. Nice shirt there, Tubby. Actually the sad part is I think I bought that shirt. Okay, I've just given the model a blow down with just some compressed air, just to blow any excess dust off it, and I've put some thinners in it just to lubricate the needle. Bit of lubrication never hurts. And some paint which I've mixed up. It's just can't remember what paint I used, but it's white. I think I put a drop of black in it just to dumb it down. And to start with, I'm just going to give it a bit what they call a tack coat, which is just a very light coat for the rest of the coats to stick to. Do the undersides first, and then keeping the airbrush moving all the time, just give it a light, quick coat. Okay, I've set the car down for 2 to 5 minutes just to let that dry. And now I've turned up the airbrush a little bit, and just putting on another lightish coat, just a little bit heavier. I think there's something in the airbrush which is spitting a little bit, but it's working fine. And again, underside first, keep the airbrush moving all the time, and we give it a slightly heavier coat. And again, after letting it sit for a few minutes, just to let the paint dry, I'll whack on another coat. Now, don't go too heavy, because you go too heavy, you'll get runs. If you go in the one spot, you'll get runs. So just keep it moving, make sure you get all the nooks and crannies and every angle, and hopefully all goes well. Now, of course, you don't need an airbrush. It does give you good control. Plenty of guys get really good results, myself included, out of rattle cans. But it's a little bit like trying to drive a panel pin with a sledgehammer. Now for the final coat, and this is the wet coat. So you put enough paint on it so it gets a wet sheen about it. Now, a wet sheen to too much paint and you get runs is a pretty fine line. I know I've done it. So yeah, get that last coat on fairly heavy until it looks wet. I've seen some guys on YouTube, they have these little shelf baking ovens or grill ovens. But, I don't have one of those. I've got nowhere to put one anyway, so I'll just put it somewhere safe under a cover overnight so no dust settles on it. After leaving it sit to cure overnight, actually in this case it's probably been a couple of days since I've been able to get back to it, this is my very first effort at doing some masking on a die-cast car. So I'm going to shoot some red on that. But first I'm just making sure that this masking tape is down properly. So where the door gaps are, door handles, that sort of thing, I'm just making sure that the masking tape is down so paint doesn't get underneath it and run. I've seen some videos where guys will shoot a clear to seal it, to make sure the colour doesn't run under the masking tape. But I think if we just do it slowly and just build up the paint over a few coats, we should be okay. And here's this poor old windscreen. It's heavily scratched, and where the glass is over the rear windows, I tried to put it together, but it just looked like crap. So I've got the rotary tool and I cut the rear windows out. Luckily the wagon windows are fine, just heavily scratched. Using some wet and dry, I think it's 1200 wet and dry to start with. I gave it the whole thing a good rub down. And then I got the 2000 wet and dry and went over it with that as well. Using the Autosol acrylic polisher, which I found at the local hardware, I gave the thing a really good buff. I buffed and buffed and buffed the whole thing, cleaned it up, and it still had plenty of scratches in it. So I went over the whole thing with the wet and dry again and buffed it again. Yeah, real making a silk purse out of a pig's ear type stuff. But once I was satisfied, I dipped it in the self-shining floor wax and put a cover over it and let it sit overnight to dry. Something else I saw someone do on YouTube, liquid shoe polish on the wheels. Seemed to make sense, it worked alright for him, so why not? Sorry I'm not giving any specific builders shout outs. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and some of the really good ones are the guys that do specialise in mods, because they come up with some really great techniques on how to go about doing things. The end is nigh, putting things back together. So the axles I simply put in the rotary tool and using sandpaper and steel wool and then polish. I polish them up. Now I'm just picking out the best face of the wheel to face outwards. And using the ball peen hammer, we tappity tap 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 until we put that burr back on and the wheel doesn't fall off. And when that's done, we do the back. the final assembly. So we take the screw out, of course. I've already put the windscreen back in. I've just used a drop of silicone just to hold it, in case one day I do find a better windscreen. I can pop it out reasonably easy. So the base goes on. It's been freshly painted with some really cheap paint, and we'll just whack that screw in and she's done. A quick reminder of what we started with: a well-used, well-loved SS Cadillac. As you can see, someone has loved this car and has done many, many rescues. This is how it looks now. It's fresh white paint. I love those Ghostbuster decals. The red down the side, like the movie car. I've set myself blind trying to do those details with the chrome and everything. My eyes certainly aren't what they used to be, and I've actually gone and invested in one of those magnifying glasses with a light in it during the week, so I'll be better prepared for the next one. Those axles are nice and shiny. The grille is just done with some watered down acrylic, and I've painted in the lights as well. Now this isn't the actual movie car. It of course was much bigger, but seriously, the movie car was a Miller Meteor converted Cadillac. But this is close enough. Hey, who are you going to call, right? And it's right at home, in amongst the collection. I got slack, didn't video record myself putting it in, just took a photo of it in there. But anyway, I've made this fast. It's been a long one. It's been a real experience for me. I'm learning heaps all the time. Thanks for watching. I've got some cool cars coming up, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.